Now, it's actually crazy how many fans Doja Cat has lost just in the last 2 weeks. The number is pretty astonishing if I do say so myself. Now, Doja Cat was recently caught in 4K beefing with her fans on social media. We talked about it a few days ago and the video went double platinum, no features I might add. But the story was essentially this. Doja Cat fans were asking some questions about someone that she's currently in a relationship with. Her boyfriend, who we're not gonna name, had some accusations against him. A lot of young women were coming out on social media saying that he was out here not being very good towards women. Don't want to be too descriptive, just check out that video I made. But he had these accusations against him. A lot of women were coming out, a lot of those being Doja Cat fans, and they started asking questions like, Doja Cat, this is your man's? Is this the kind of person that you chose as your boyfriend? Now that quickly went from the fans asking questions to Doja Cat herself responding back to her fans on social media. And her responses weren't all that good. Doja Cat was calling her fans all types of names, being very condescending towards them. She was going back and forth with some of them on social media, and the rest of her fans were just watching this entire thing go down. Not only were they watching this entire thing go down, but a lot of people decided to exit the fan base. Some of her biggest fan accounts deactivated, and it just created a storm, if you will, within the fan base. Like I stated in my video about this, I don't think Doja Cat owed any of her fans an explanation. So had she ignored all that discourse, I would have not said anything. At the end of the day, who she picks as her man is up to nobody but herself. She's a grown woman, and I don't think anyone should feel entitled to get a response out of her. With that being said though, she could have of course just ignored what her fans were saying, because to be fair, it wasn't really a big percentage of her audience who even knew about this. I mean, sure, there were tweets going viral criticizing her and whatnot, but you gotta keep in mind, Twitter is a world of its own. People are literally lying on that app every single day. Like 90% of the most viral tweets that present themselves as informed are actually very misinformed. If not that, it's a person saying something because they're just looking for retweets. Been there myself, and yes, that's the pot calling the kettle black. Somebody could just wake up and drop a tweet about me tomorrow. It gets 5,000 retweets, and I'ma be on here talking my shit like nothing ever happened. Unless they come out and say some shit like, oh, BlackySpeakz is a white man and I got proof. Because at that point, I gotta say something, man. The BlackySpeakz is white allegations have already gone too far. And the thing is, even if that happened, you probably wouldn't even have knowledge of those tweets. So, should I come out and address them? Well, only if the situation calls for a response. If it's something that's jeopardizing a person's brand in a detrimental way, then absolutely you should respond just to set the record straight. That's what I would have done and will do if that ever happens. Now, it wasn't the response that was the issue when it comes to this Doja Cat situation. It's how she responded, and how Doja responded to her fans who were inquiring about her man who allegedly did something to some women out there. Well, that response was far from justified, right? And I don't think no matter how the fans might have came across that they had any malicious intent with that. Yes, parasocial relationships are very real and Doja Cat has benefited from it. Just a quick explanation as to what precisely it is. It's very relevant to this topic specifically, and I think it's very important for you to know what it is, because this is something that's very relevant to you listening to me talk. So this is how it's described. Parasocial relationships are one-sided relationships where one person extends emotional energy, interest, and time, and the other party, the persona, is completely unaware of the other's existence. Parasocial relationships are most common with celebrities, organizations, such as sports teams, or television stars. So that's what it means. You essentially have a one-sided relationship with people through the internet that you might support. Maybe they're a musician, maybe they're a creator like me. You consume their work, you appreciate their work, and that leads to you liking other aspects of them as a person. The more you support them, the more you're investing into that relationship. This is actually not a bad thing, by the way, because that's the natural result of supporting something on the internet who might not be a part of your life in any type of fashion directly, right? It's only negative when you don't really understand that it is a one-sided relationship. And it's also negative when you start to feel some type of possessiveness, obsession, or entitlement towards that person that you're supporting. There's so many people who I support and listen to on a daily, and they don't even know who the hell I am. And I don't have an issue with that because, you know, it is what it is. I support them with my time, money, and energy, and I'm fine with that because I benefit from that myself. And when I say that, I'm talking about the fact that me consuming their work actually brings some type of value to my life, is what I'm saying. And so does Doja Cat. She, of course, benefits from it on a whole nother level, however, because she's one of the biggest pop stars on the planet and has indirectly and directly encouraged it for better or worse, because even though she can't control how deeply connected people might feel to her, at the end of the day, if you're very open about who you are as a person, like Doja Cat has been, in a lot of ways, you're of course enabling that parasocial relationship because it is a two-way street. There's no parasocial relationship if the artist/creator doesn't put themselves out there first. So the fans who of course feel like they knew Doja Cat started asking all these questions, and they ended up seeing a very nasty side of Doja Cat. That prompted a lot of those fans to push back on her behavior and question it. And then the next step after that, a lot of those fans didn't like what they saw and they said, you know what, I'm actually done supporting her, I'm out, peace. Now as far as the numbers, Doja Cat has lost a lot of fans, like a lot. I want to go through the actual numbers. So how many followers she's lost on Instagram. I'll show you Twitter as well, but the Twitter numbers aren't that bad, which is interesting because, you know, that's where everything went down. IG, however, let's just say that it's a hefty number, right? I think this will serve as a learning experience for a lot of us, especially for all of us who might be in a field of creating and have hopes of building an audience one day, or just maintaining an audience, depends on the place that you're at, of course. So here's Doja Cat's Social Blade statistics on Instagram. Like always, if you're listening to this, I'll be describing exactly what I see on the screen, so just focus on what you're doing, no worries, I gotcha. Doja Cat currently has, at the time you're recording this, 25,667,517 followers on Instagram. This is actually a 2.1% drop from what she previously had, and that number was previously at 26,231,667. So this 2.1% drop occurred during this entire ordeal. If you're looking at the screen, as you can see, it started dipping on the 8th of July and has been going downhill since. As for Twitter, she got 5,666,666. Damn, bitch might be the devil. 5,666,122 followers on there. So I don't know how the numbers on Twitter didn't get cut by way more, since that's where everything started. It could be that the kind of people who follow her on Twitter and the kind of people who follow her on Instagram are actually two different types of people. What does that mean? Well, famous people and just people with platforms in general tend to have higher numbers on Instagram in comparison to Twitter. Not always, by the way. It of course depends on your platform, the kind of person that you are online and all that, right? Because you gotta be somewhat interesting to get followers on Twitter. Followers who engage, for that matter. Maybe the people who follow her on Instagram follow her on there for different reasons than I love Doja Cat so much, right? IG is a platform built on visuals after all. That's why my IG has been stuck at like 75K, you know, for a while. Obviously, the more you post, which I barely do, I just respond to messages. And if you post your face and, you know, which I do sometimes, the more people are going to start following you because you're getting promoted by the algorithm and whatnot. But I digress. So a 2.1% drop in less than 3 weeks on IG, that's crazy though. The amount of people she lost on Instagram precisely is 564,150. In comparison to how many followers Doja Cat actually has, obviously she's not gonna have to clock in a 9 to 5, right? Far from. She's doing really good regardless. But the number is pretty steep, if I do say so myself, especially since this wasn't a situation that she had to face. I mean, Doja Cat took it upon herself to do this, and this was the result. All these 500,000 people, at least on IG, said, I'm taking my time and energy elsewhere because I don't like what I'm seeing. Here's the thing, I don't think Doja Cat is a bad person because of this. If anything, all that stuff she was doing in them chats should have been the final nail in the coffin. Anyway, I think she just exhibited some very undesirable behavior at this time. A lot of her fans were shocked at it, so it caused a rift within the fan base, and that's about it. She's going on tour in a few months, and I'm sure that will sell out if it hasn't sold out already. Now, some of her biggest fan accounts were actually interviewed by the news 2 days ago. Crazy. They're interviewing stan accounts now? That's funny. That's kind of funny. But they had some things to say about it. So let's check out this article by NBC News. Doja Cat fans want an apology after she mocked them online. The title of it is, or the headline of it is, fan pages on Twitter deactivated their accounts after the online clash, and many people weighed in on what, if anything, celebrities owe their fans. Some Doja Cat fans say they feel alienated by the rapper after she posted and later deleted disparaging comments towards her fanbase. Last weekend, the Juicy rapper, I keep it juicy, I eat at lunch. Last weekend, the Juicy rapper took to Meta's Threads to tell fans who call themselves kittens to get off their phones and get a job. After a fan account asked for a preferred fan base name, she doubled down, writing, "Just delete the entire account and rethink everything." She also denied one person's request to say she loved her fans. "I don't though, because I don't even know y'all," Doja said. Following the heated exchange with multiple fans, major presence in the kittens world, including the Twitter fan pages Doja News, The Kittens Room, and @Doja HQs, signaled their discontent by deactivating their accounts. Earlier this week, the fan account Doja Cat Brazil announced an indefinite break. The online beef between Doja Cat and her, this shit is just so funny to me, I don't know why, but anyway, the online beef between Doja Cat and her fans has reignited a debate about what, if anything, celebrities owe their fans. Fans behind two of these deactivated accounts spoke to NBC News about their decision and hopes that Doja Cat will apologize soon. "She needs to just come out and apologize and be sincere," said Jamoon, owner of the deactivated page @Doja Cat News, or @Doja News, who wanted to be identified by only his first name for security purposes. Amir, who runs the deactivated The Kittens Room account, said artists don't owe fans anything outside of surface level respect. That's a really good point, I agree with that. It's a 50-50 thing, you know? I respect you for what you do, and you respect me in return for that support, he continued. Deactivating our accounts was really us letting it be known that the support can stop for her anytime. We do so much campaigning and promotion for her that isn't worth it if her comments are how she really feels, said Amir, who asked that his last name not be used for fear that any fans upset about his stance could harm him or his loved ones. Amir, I'll be honest with you, bro, I don't think it's that serious. 80% of Doja Cat's fans are like teenage girls, so they ain't gonna do shit. Come on, bro. He said Doja Cat's Threads posts shocked him. It just felt like such an out of nowhere thing for her to say, considering her attitudes towards us just last year were so positive. When we met last year, she expressed love for the page. I don't think fans wanting love from Doja or not wanting her to date falls into the parasocial relationship realm, he said. See, that point I don't agree with, because who are you as a fan to tell another grown woman who she can and cannot date? At the end of the day, hypothetically speaking, and I don't know if these allegations are true, right? If he is what he is, then that's who she chose. Doesn't make it morally honorable that she chose that kind of person as her mate? Well, that's another conversation, right? But I don't think the fans should ever feel like they have the right to decide who she dates. It don't really matter who the person is. I mean, at the end of the day, she's choosing that person. You're on the outside, you don't really know the half of it, so who are you to condemn or accept who she gets to date? Rihanna has a really good song about this called Half of Me from her Unapologetic album, where she's touching on people, her fans, the media, and the outside world knowing half of the story that they see. "You saw me on a television," she says, as she's talking about her wins and losses being televised, and that leading to a certain perception of her life that might not necessarily be true because the people are only seeing half of the story. Back to Doja Cat. She's an adult, and I think that fans should really stay in their lane at the end of the day. So that's how I feel about it. Also, the fact that you run a fan page and you're spending all this time supporting her and campaigning for her like you're a part of her team, that doesn't give you any additional right to pass judgment on who she's picking. I think fans should really just stay in their place. If you're a fan, then you're a fan. If you run a fan page and you run a fan page, then that's on you. Anything that comes after that, if you don't like it, then of course deactivate it like they did here. And also stay deactivated if you don't really like how she's moving. A lot of fans have a tendency to think the more they invest into an artist, like emotional investment, that gives them the right to have certain opinions about how the artist is living. But at the end of the day, it is a parasocial relationship, so even if she did tell you that she appreciated that you're running this fan page for her in person, don't forget you're still a stranger to her, and you're always going to be a stranger to her. She doesn't know you, she doesn't owe you anything, and you should always have that in the back of your mind. People's outrage is warranted, especially when she's blocking victims and her fans over him. A spokesperson for Doja did not immediately respond to requests for comment. The controversy surrounding Doja Cat's rumored boyfriend is one of the major reasons why Amir is on a hiatus from the fan page. It just feels odd supporting her right now, knowing his past and that she affiliates with him, he said. Others online disagree with the fans' convictions, criticizing them for overstepping the boundaries of Doja Cat's personal life. This is exactly what's wrong with stan culture and parasocial relationships. People out here thinking they can tell their fave who to be with, like no, one person tweeted. And you know, that's a good point. Two things can be true at once. That's something I've always agreed with. I don't think she owes nobody a response. And the criticism I had for her is how she responded. That I did not like, because at the end of the day, the fans asking questions, that's coming from a good place. However, because they're asking questions and they're overstepping, that did not give her the right to respond the way she responded. And it's kind of crazy to hear this from stans. I mean, again, these are people who've dedicated their precious time and energy to support her in everything she does. And it's not like they're getting paid for this. They're just passionate Doja Cat fans. Some takeaways from this story, some of these relate to Doja Cat directly, and some of these things are just things that I'm thinking about. If you have an audience, it don't matter if it's 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, or 100,000 people. You got to make sure that you don't take those people for granted, because support in any capacity is never guaranteed. People don't have to support you in this life. You're not entitled to support. And don't ever feel like you're entitled to it, because that's just going to end up leading to disappointment when you don't get any support. So when people support your work, they're taking their time out of their day to pour into what you got going on. It's very important to realize that it could go from you're getting all this love to you're not getting any love anymore. For that to abruptly happen, you obviously have to royally mess up. But sometimes that's how it goes. Sometimes you're on top of the world, everybody seemingly loves you one day, and the next day they don't. Nobody's invincible. You can go from super relevant to super irrelevant swiftly. You should obviously not base your worth on whether or not people are cheering you on, because you should be your own biggest cheerleader. You should be your own biggest supporter. You should be your own biggest motivator first, regardless of if you're getting that on the external. Because all that you're getting on the outside, that's fickle, that's not forever, but you are forever. But is that something anybody hopes for? Who wants to not receive support? We all do. The thing about the internet is, and I did see this with this Doja Cat situation, there's a level of disconnect from the people on the other end that a lot of times seems to come into play. I think the reason why Doja Cat was so comfortable responding the way she did is because of that. It's easy to view the people who are supporting your work as just another number, just another view, just another statistic, but it's real people on the other end. Just like right now, if you're listening to this, there's a million other people who you could tune into, but you chose me, and that choice in itself, no matter how long it lasts, to me, it means the world, because I've seen so many creators come and go. I have, after all, been doing this for close to 7 years now, and during these 7 years, a lot of the people who I started with are no longer here, so they didn't finish the marathon for whatever reason. And the contrary is also true. There's a lot of people who started way after me and they've passed me, but that's of course okay, because everybody's on their own journey. I'm not comparing myself to anybody. I'm just saying, and I'm just trying to make a point. The one commonality I've seen with the ones who last is they're just grateful for the audience that they have accumulated, and they move accordingly, because people at the end of the day want to support others who are likable, who they deem as good, and that's of course subjective, and there's obviously different levels of that because no one is perfect, including me. Just in general, we like supporting good folks. On the other hand, sometimes you don't have to like the person. You just listen to their work and consume their work because you love their work, and you just leave it at that, and that's fine as well. A lot of these Doja Cat fans are going to continue listening to her work, but they don't have to like her on a personal level. But if you want something that's based on some real, I mean, you got to make sure you show gratitude and you try to be as good as possible. In this situation, I don't think Doja Cat was thinking too much about how she was showing up with her responses. For her, I think just getting her piece out, no matter how she said it, was the most important part. And that's not even necessarily wrong. It's more so just if you're trying to keep a certain tone within your fan base and within your audience, then you got to be mindful of how you address things. Not every artist or creator cares about that though. A lot of people are just here to make their money and boom. That's it. They don't necessarily have an ounce of care as far as how their audience receives them. They're just here to do their job and bounce. That aside, an important part of this is Doja Cat doesn't owe the world anything, let alone an explanation for why she's together with her boyfriend who she picked. But with being in the kind of position she's in, you know, she's ultra famous, and with just having a platform in general, you do have a responsibility to show up a certain way because you have this thing called influence. What are they saying? Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. If you can start with recognizing that power, then recognizing that responsibility is second nature. As for this Doja Cat story specifically, she's obviously going to continue to do well, and I wouldn't wish otherwise, because at the end of the day, you got to give people a chance, and most importantly of all, the space to grow. Being in the position she's in and having so many people scrutinizing her personal life, I understand that it's a different kind of pressure, something I don't understand. Her reality is obviously different from ours, and people at the end of the day can only show up with their own reality in mind mind because that's at the top of their mind. I hope Doja Cat can at least recognize that the way she responded wasn't the most productive, and it's not just about protecting the money and being afraid that you're gonna lose fans. It's about setting a good example for all those people who follow her, because the majority of them are very young and they're not gonna care about this. However, a lot of them did see this going down. So the question is, what kind of message does that send to them? Doja Cat is a grown woman who should know better. She should have not addressed her fans in this way, even though they were a little irrational, right? So in the end, it does set a bad example in their eyes. Also, I hope a lot of the fans who did show up in an entitled and demanding way can take a look at themselves in the mirror and realize that she doesn't owe y'all a damn thing. So I think there are errors on both ends, and there's of course room for growth on both ends. Anyway, I hope you don't leave this video not dropping a like. I'm just saying. Okay, I'm just saying. Any thoughts on this Doja Cat story? Any thoughts on some of the points I brought up? Were there any other things that, maybe you're thinking about that I forgot to cover as far as the aftermath? Curious to hear what you have to say. Catch you on the next one, and don't forget to turn off the TV before you sleep. I'm out.